He handed her divorce papers at her own baby shower. 7 months pregnant. Cameras flashing, family watching, her best friend standing right there, the woman he'd been sleeping with. The envelope wasn't wrapped in ribbon. It was just white paper with black ink that said everything she already knew: you were never enough. But what Olivia did next made his jaw drop and the entire room erupt in chaos. Because what Daniel didn't know, what nobody knew, was that Olivia's dead father had left her something. Something that would turn his billion-dollar empire into ashes. And the clock was ticking. 2 months. That's all she had to survive. 2 months of playing the broken wife while hiding the biggest secret of her life. This is the story of how a woman turned humiliation into power. And it starts 3 months earlier, in a mansion that felt more like a prison. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to ask you something. If you believe some stories deserve to be heard, if you believe that voices pushed into silence deserve to rise, hit that subscribe button. Because this isn't just entertainment. Every subscription helps us share stories of women who refused to stay broken, who turned their pain into power, who proved that the quietest person in the room might just be the most dangerous. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Are you in a small town in Georgia? A Chicago apartment like Olivia? A farm in Iowa? Because these American stories, they're everywhere. They're yours. They're ours. Now, back to that envelope.
3 months earlier, autumn had just started turning the trees outside the Moore mansion into fire, reds and golds that reminded Olivia of the New England town where she grew up, where life was simpler, where her father, a carpenter with calloused hands and a warm laugh, taught her that character mattered more than cash. Marry for love, Livy, he'd told her the week before he died. Not for power. And if power comes, make damn sure it's yours. She hadn't understood what he meant then now. Standing in the marble-floored hallway of her husband's family mansion, she understood perfectly. Margaret Moore's voice echoed from the sitting room, sharp, polished, cold as the October wind rattling the windows. Olivia, if you're going to represent this family, at least learn to sit properly. Olivia touched her growing belly and straightened her spine. Yes, Margaret. Her mother-in-law appeared in the doorway. Perfectly coiffed silver hair, pearls that probably cost more than Olivia's college education, and a smile that never reached her eyes. You're slouching again, Margaret said, circling her like a hawk eyeing wounded prey. Honestly, Daniel should have listened to me. I told him, working-class girls don't know how to carry themselves in society. Working class. The words Margaret wielded like a weapon, as if Olivia's father's honest work was something shameful. As if growing up in a house filled with laughter instead of money made her less than human. My people, Olivia said softly, taught me that kindness matters more than posture. Margaret's lips thinned. Kindness doesn't host charity galas, dear. Grace does. Real grace. The kind that comes from breeding. Olivia bit her tongue. She'd learned that silence was safer in this house. Silence kept the peace. Silence kept her from seeing that look in Daniel's eyes. The one that said he was already regretting his choice. Margaret leaned closer, her perfume expensive and suffocating. You know, you should be grateful my son married you. I told him he could do better. But Daniel always had a soft spot for strays. The word landed like a slap. Stray. Olivia forced a smile, the kind that doesn't quite reach your eyes. I'll try to be a better stray then. Watch your tone, Margaret hissed. Just then, footsteps echoed on the marble staircase. Daniel descended like he was walking a red carpet. 6 feet tall, tailored suit, hair slicked back like he'd stepped out of a cologne ad. He looked at his wife, then his mother, his expression somewhere between bored and irritated. What's going on? He asked, checking his Rolex. Nothing, Margaret said quickly, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. Just reminding Olivia about proper presentation. We have guests tonight. Daniel's eyes swept over Olivia, from her swollen belly to her bare feet. She'd taken off the heels an hour ago. Doctor's orders. But Daniel didn't care about doctor's orders. You should dress up more, he said flatly. Samantha will be here. Olivia's blood went cold. Samantha, her best friend. Her maid of honor. The woman who now answered Daniel's late-night calls and showed up at business dinners, wearing dresses that cost more than furniture. I can't wear heels anymore, Olivia said quietly. The doctor said, doctors exaggerate. Daniel cut her off. My mother walked in heels until the day I was born. Margaret beamed with pride. That's right. A woman who wants to look her best will find a way. Olivia wanted to scream. She wanted to throw something. She wanted to tell them both exactly what they could do with their heels and their posture and their poisonous expectations. Instead, she whispered, I'll change. Daniel nodded, satisfied, already pulling out his phone. Good. Make sure you smile tonight. People are watching. He walked away, typing a message, his lips curving into a small smile at whatever response came through. Olivia didn't need to guess who was on the other end. Asterisk that evening. The mansion transformed into something out of a magazine spread. The dining room glowed with candlelight. Crystal glasses caught the flicker of flames. Laughter bounced off the high ceilings. Hollow and performative, Olivia played her part perfectly, the gracious hostess, the devoted wife. The woman who poured champagne she couldn't drink while her husband's mistress sat at her table. Samantha arrived fashionably late. As always, wearing a gold dress that shimmered with every movement. Her manicured hand found Daniel's arm so naturally, so comfortably, like it had been there 1,000 times before. Maybe it had. Olivia, Samantha exclaimed, air-kissing both her cheeks. You're absolutely glowing. Pregnancy suits you. The lie was so smooth, so practiced, it almost sounded sincere. Thank you, Olivia replied, her voice steady. You look happy. Samantha's smile widened. I am. Very happy. Across the table, Daniel chuckled at something Samantha whispered in his ear. Olivia couldn't hear the words, but she didn't need to. His smile, the one she hadn't seen directed at her in months, said everything. Margaret raised her glass, her voice carrying over the conversations. To Daniel, for his success, his vision, and his excellent taste in both business and company. Everyone laughed, everyone except Olivia. She held her water glass steady, her knuckles white, and wondered how much longer she could keep pretending this was normal, that this was marriage. That love was supposed to feel like drowning. When dinner finally ended, she slipped outside onto the balcony. The October night was crisp and cool, the city lights of Chicago twinkling below like fallen stars. She placed both hands on her belly, feeling the twins kick, strong, alive, hers. I'm sorry, she whispered to them. I'm so sorry you're coming into this. But I promise you, I'll figure it out. Behind her, the glass door slid open. Daniel stepped out, bourbon in hand, his tie loosened. There you are. You disappeared. I needed air. He leaned against the railing, studying her with those blue eyes that used to make her heart race. Now they just made her tired. You embarrassed my mother tonight, he said casually. I did nothing. Exactly. You were quiet. People notice when you're quiet, Olivia. It makes them uncomfortable. She turned to face him fully. Then maybe they should stop saying things that deserve silence. His expression darkened. Watch it. You brought her here, Olivia said, her voice trembling but steady. My best friend. You don't think that makes me uncomfortable? Daniel took a slow sip of bourbon, his eyes never leaving hers. You should be grateful I didn't leave you sooner. The words hung in the cold air between them. You will, Olivia heard herself say. You'll leave. And when you do, Daniel Moore, you'll regret it. He laughed, cold, sharp, cruel. You think you can hurt me? Olivia, you wouldn't last a day without my name. He brushed past her, back inside where the warmth and laughter and lies waited. Olivia stood alone under the October sky, the wind playing with her hair, the twins kicking softly inside her. Her heart was breaking, yes, but something else was being born. Not revenge, not hate, something quieter, something stronger, resolve. The next morning, Olivia woke to sunlight streaming through the bedroom windows and an unfamiliar number glowing on her phone. Unknown caller, her heart raced as she answered. Hello, Mrs. Moore. A calm, professional male voice. My name is Charles Bennett. I was your father's attorney. Olivia sat up straighter, her pulse quickening. My father's been gone 3 years. Yes, ma'am. But certain instructions he left were time-locked. Time-locked. They activate when specific conditions are met. Charles paused. In this case, when your pregnancy reached 7 months. Olivia's hand went to her belly instinctively. What kind of instructions? I think we should meet in person, Charles said. There's a cafe in Evanston, Lucia's, on Davis Street. Can you be there this afternoon? What's this about? Another pause, longer this time. Then, your father created a trust fund for your children, Mrs. Moore. A substantial one. And he built in protections. Protections from what? Charles's voice dropped lower. From your husband. The next morning, Olivia woke to sunlight streaming through the bedroom windows and an unfamiliar number glowing on her phone. Unknown caller, her heart raced as she answered. Hello, Mrs. Moore. A calm, professional male voice. My name is Charles Bennett. I was your father's attorney. Olivia sat up straighter, her pulse quickening. My father's been gone 3 years. Yes, ma'am. But certain instructions he left were time-locked. Time-locked. They activate when specific conditions are met. Charles paused. In this case, when your pregnancy reached 7 months. Olivia's hand went to her belly instinctively. What kind of instructions? I think we should meet in person, Charles said. There's a cafe in Evanston, Lucia's, on Davis Street. Can you be there this afternoon? What's this about? Another pause, longer this time. Then, your father created a trust fund for your children, Mrs. Moore. A substantial one. And he built in protections. Protections from what? Charles's voice dropped lower. From your husband. The next morning, Olivia woke to sunlight streaming through the bedroom windows and an unfamiliar number glowing on her phone. Unknown caller, her heart raced as she answered. Hello, Mrs. Moore. A calm, professional male voice. My name is Charles Bennett. I was your father's attorney. Olivia sat up straighter, her pulse quickening. My father's been gone 3 years. Yes, ma'am. But certain instructions he left were time-locked. Time-locked. They activate when specific conditions are met. Charles paused. In this case, when your pregnancy reached 7 months. Olivia's hand went to her belly instinctively. What kind of instructions? I think we should meet in person, Charles said. There's a cafe in Evanston, Lucia's, on Davis Street. Can you be there this afternoon? What's this about? Another pause, longer this time. Then, your father created a trust fund for your children, Mrs. Moore. A substantial one. And he built in protections. Protections from what? Charles's voice dropped lower. From your husband. That afternoon, Olivia drove herself to Evanston, a quiet suburb north of Chicago where the streets were lined with trees and small businesses instead of skyscrapers. She wore sunglasses and a scarf, trying to look inconspicuous. Though her pregnant belly made that nearly impossible, Lucia's Cafe was a small Italian place with checkered tablecloths and the smell of espresso and fresh bread. Charles Bennett sat in the back corner, 60s, gray hair, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, wearing a suit that looked lived in and honest that he stood when she approached. Mrs. Moore, thank you for coming. She slid into the booth across from him. You said my father left something for me. Charles opened his briefcase and pulled out a sealed folder, setting it carefully on the table between them. Your father was a very cautious man. He suspected certain things about your husband's character. Olivia's throat tightened. He knew. He saw patterns, Charles said gently. The way Daniel controlled your access to money. The way his family treated you. Your father was a simple man, Mrs. Moore, but he wasn't a fool. He pushed the folder toward her. Inside are the details of a trust fund, set up 3 years ago, right before your father's death. $1 billion, held in a secure trust for your children. The world stopped. The cafe sounds, the hiss of the espresso machine, the murmur of conversations, the clatter of cups, all faded into white noise. Hey, what? $1 billion, Charles repeated. Your father sold his company to a private equity firm the year before he died. He didn't tell you because he knew Daniel would find a way to control it. So he built this trust with very specific clauses. Olivia couldn't breathe, couldn't think. What kind of clauses? Charles leaned forward, his voice low and steady. The trust activates only after you give birth, not before. And there's another clause. If your husband divorces you before the twins are born, he forfeits all claim to the money. Every penny goes to you and your children. He gets nothing. The pieces started falling into place. Her father's last words. If power comes, make sure it's yours. Daniel's recent behavior, the coldness, the distance, the barely concealed contempt. Margaret's cruelty, Samantha's audacity, they were all waiting. Waiting for the birth. Waiting to take everything. But they didn't know about the trust. Does Daniel know? Olivia whispered. No one knows except you, me, and the trustee bank, Charles said. Your father made sure of that. He wanted you protected. Olivia pressed her hands flat against the table to stop them from shaking. So if Daniel divorces me before I give birth, he gets nothing, Charles confirmed. The trust becomes entirely yours. Your father wrote it that way deliberately. He said, my daughter's marrying a shark. Let's make sure he can't bite. For the first time in months, maybe years, Olivia laughed out a real laugh, broken and shocked and alive. He really did that. Charles smiled. He loved you very much. And he was smarter than anyone gave him credit for. Olivia stared at the sealed folder, her father's final gift, his last protection. What do I do now? She whispered. You survive, Charles said simply. You endure. You keep playing the role they expect, the quiet wife, the broken woman. Let them think they've won. And when those babies are born, he paused. Everything changes. Olivia met his eyes. How long do I have to wait? 2 months. Maybe less if the twins come early. I can do 2 months, she said softly. Then stronger. I can do 2 months. Charles handed her a business card. Call me if anything changes. If he threatens you. If you need anything. Your father trusted me, Mrs. Moore. I hope you will too. She took the card, her fingers steady now. Thank you, she whispered. For honoring him. For this. He was a good man, Charles said. And you're his daughter. That means you're stronger than you know. That night, Olivia returned to the mansion just as the sun was setting. Daniel's car was already in the driveway, unusual for a Thursday. He was usually working late. She found him in the living room, pouring himself a drink. Where were you? He asked without looking up. Doctor's appointment. He didn't ask how it went. Didn't ask about the babies. Didn't ask about her. I'm filing the divorce papers next week, he said casually, like he was discussing the weather. My lawyer will have them ready. Olivia's heart pounded, but her voice stayed calm. Next week. Yeah. No point dragging this out. I'll make sure you get something. Enough for an apartment, maybe a nanny. Don't worry. I'm not cruel. He finally looked at her, that familiar smirk on his face. You'll be fine, Olivia. You're tougher than you look. She met his eyes, saw the satisfaction there, the belief that he'd already won, and she smiled out a small, quiet smile. You're right, Daniel, she said softly. I am tougher than I look. He frowned slightly, confused by her tone, but shrugged it off and headed upstairs. Olivia stayed in the living room, one hand resting on her belly, feeling the twins move, alive, strong. Waiting. Charles's words echoed in her mind. When those babies are born, everything changes. She closed her eyes and whispered to her unborn children, just a little longer. Just hold on a little longer. Then Daddy's going to learn what it means to underestimate a woman. Outside, the Chicago skyline glowed against the darkening sky. Inside, Olivia Moore stopped being afraid. That's the end of part 1. But this story? It's just getting started. In part 2. You'll see what happens when Daniel files those papers at the worst possible moment, the baby shower. In front of everyone. Cameras rolling. Reporters watching. And you'll see Olivia's response. That makes the entire room erupt. If you want to know what she said, what secret she revealed that destroyed Daniel's perfect life, then you need to watch part 2. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. Turn on notifications. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had someone underestimate you? What happened when you proved them wrong? Because that's what this story is about, not revenge. Not money. It's about the moment a woman decides she's done being small. See you in part 2.